Thank you for inviting me to this very interesting curated series. I should say that I found the brief quite invigorating. It's not often that generally people invite you to speak about your work, but it was an interesting twist that you guys came up with, which was for me to invoke authors or creative people who have influenced me deeply. So I was quite happy to respond to this brief. And by way of a small introduction to my work, I will show three very short films, which we created when we crafted the online digital archive called Ajab Sheher. We crafted these very short videos. I think they will take you right into the heart of what my work has been over these 2 decades and where all I have been ghumoing and what I have been grooving to, me and our team at the Kabir Project. So I hope you can hear this clearly.
जाली बोलो में पानी रे मने ये बोलावे शुद्ध करूं ज्ञानी रे मने बोलावे शुद्ध करूं ज्ञानी एजी मनो इवरियो छोड़ी ले साथरिया मचाली ये मने शर्म लागे लागे शानी ये मने बोलावे आशद करूं ज्ञानी ये तो आ चाली भरवा रे पानी रे मने बोलावे शुद्ध करूं ज्ञानी बोलावे शुद्ध करूं ज्ञानी बोलावे शुद्ध करूं
I'm going to show you 2 more short videos because I will be saved the job of giving you a flavor of the kind of ideas, the kind of poetry that my work has engaged in. So.
निजामू से नैना मैं निजामू से नैना मैं निजामू से नैना अरे मैं निजामू से नैना
কিছুদিন মনে মনে কিছুদিন মনে মনে কিছুদিন মনে মনে ঘরের কোণে স্বামীর পীড়িতে রাগ গোপনে কিছুদিন মনে মনে সরাই কইবি কথা গঠে মাঠে দেখিস যেন কেউ না জানে কেউ না বোঝে কেউ না শোনে কিছুদিন মনে মনে কিছুদিন মনে মনে কিছুদিন মনে মনে
So as you can see, our work has traveled westwards into Pakistan and east till Bengal, working with three broad traditions of mystic poetry and music, Sufi, Bhakti and Baul. And I believe we all know that these traditions are in deep consonance with each other in terms of the ideas, their spirituality and their politics. So one more short film.
कबीर की वाणी से तो बहुत दम मिलता है।
ये करने करे तो क्यों डरे, न करके क्यों करता है। और बोया पेड़ बहुल करे तो हम कर सकते।
कबीर पंथ का नियम ऐसा है कि सब एक है।
There is no difference between love, erotic love, devotion, everything comes together.
Waves are surging in the veins of your body because the Guru has touched your pulse.
घूंघट पाए वे घरन घूंघट पा वे घरन में अखड़ियूं अड़ाए विधे पराए दरन पंहिंजे घर जी नायसार संभाल इश्क शराते शामिल।
ये अगर इस नज़र से देखा जाए तो सूफीज़म किसी मजहब व मिल्लत का वो मोहताज नहीं है, ये ह्यूमैनिटी की बात है।
एक कसर दर लख सै सै सदस गिड़कियूं जहाँ करियां परख त्यां साहिब साम्हूं।
तो मनुष्य जन्म अटल वृक्ष है, ये उल्टा चल है। क्यों? क्या अपन का गोंड तो इधर है, ये हाथ पैर ताला है।
The world runs towards down and I run towards up where my Paramatma is.
इसलिए कबीर कहते हैं कि मैं नहीं जानता, मैं तो बड़ी सीधी सी बात कह रहा हूँ, संसार उल्ट है।
उल्टो बाउल।
साची कहो तो मारन धावो, झूठा जग पतियाना, संतो देखो जग बोरा।
So I showed you those three glimpses because it will plunge. I thought it would plunge you straight into the kind of ideas, the kind of wisdom, the kind of philosophy that our work has sought to ferret out from the corners of our country. As you notice, we are not only in conversation with scholars and very, very literate, urban educated people. We are actually privileging in these knowledge traditions, working with people from villages, oral scholars of Kabir or Shalatif or Bhetai. And these journeys in seeking questions around religion, about social divisions, about nationalism, about death, impermanence. Often in these journeys, I would be stopped short by Kabir himself or by these folk singers who, many of whom were gurus to me, from whom I learned so much. I would be stopped short and forced to turn the camera, as it were, upon myself, forced to turn the gaze upon myself as an artist, as a creative practitioner, seeking something. And the question would be put to me, Kabir Kabir kya kare, socho aap sharir. Like, what are you going on and on seeking outwards? Kabir, have you cast a gaze upon yourself? So I want to show you a small clip of one of the films I made on Kabir called Had Anhad. This comes towards the end of a journey in quest of Kabir's Ram, which took me on a journey from Ayodhya through Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, crossing the border over to Karachi in Pakistan. So this moment is happening at the end of the film when we are returning, and the film is just about to get over.
अरे पास्ता तू पर जोत जड़े तीन गुण पर तेजे हमारा अरे पास्ता तू पर जोते जड़े पास्ता तू पर जोते जड़े।
मक्खी और परवाने का किस्सा है। मक्खियों ने दावा किया किंग ऑफ परवाना से कि भाई हमारे भी पर हैं, हमारे भी, हम भी उड़ना जानते हैं, हम भी तुम्ही जैसे हैं, तो आप हमको परवाना मान लो। तो शाह परवाना ने कहा कि भाई जाओ और रोशनी तलाश करो, जाओ और रोशनी तलाश करो, परवाने का काम सिर्फ रोशनी तलाश करना है। तो वो मक्खियाँ उड़ी। मक्खियाँ को 10-15 मिनट में गांव देहातों में इधर उधर गई और जाकर उन्होंने फौरन वापस आई कि ये फलाने गांव में रोशनी हो रही है, फलाने में दिया जल रहा है, फलाने में आग जल रही है, वहाँ पर चिता जल रही है। भर 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 आके बैठ गए। अब वो मक्खियों ने बादशाह से कहा कि जी वो आप फैसला कीजिए कि हम फैसला क्या करें। कहेंगे जब वो आएंगे, तो जब आपके परवाने आएंगे तो पता चलेगा कि वो कामयाब रहे कि हम कामयाब। तो परवानों का बादशाह कहता है कि बेटा फैसला तो हो चुका। जी क्या फैसला हो चुका? तो कहा कि उल्लू के पट्टो, जिसको रोशनी मिल गई है उसको वापस आने की क्या जरूरत है। जो रोशनी जिसने पाली वो तो कुर्बान हो गया, वो तो एक हो गया।
और जिनको कामयाबी
जिनको सर्टिफिकेट चाहिए था, जिनको सर्टिफिकेट चाहिए, तो इस वक्त हम सर्टिफिकेट का काम कर रहे हैं। हम जो है कभी
So I wanted to share that particular episode with all of you because I know the bulk of my audience here are young students, creative professionals, aspiring creative practitioners. And I wanted to signal to you this moment, which I feel is really profound, because what this Kawal Fariduddin Ayaz in Karachi is doing in this moment, as you may have seen, is he is literally grasping my camera lens with his hand at the end of this clip. And he is asking me, what is my quest? As a creative practitioner, what am I searching for? What do I hope to achieve? And I think that's a question you all must be asking yourselves as you shape yourselves for a career. Like, what is it that we seek when we set out with our skills and our talents and our education degrees? As he says, he's laughing at me for wanting a certificate to prove that I did something, I learned something, and he's poking me. So what is he poking me about? What is this roshni that he is saying that I should blend into? What is this being a parvana, you know? And to start sharing my learnings as a creative practitioner with all of you, I want to take you back to somewhere around the years 2005, 6, 7, which is when I was struggling to edit 4 feature-length Kabir documentary films. I'm primarily trained as a filmmaker. And I had got sucked into these oral traditions of Kabir. And I had been traveling for 2-3 years by now, documenting and gathering rich footage of the sort that you saw in the beginning films. I was sitting on almost 400 to 500 hours of very rich field experiences, footage about conversations, music in the field around all of this. And I was in the throes of a complete breakdown. Breakdown because I was daunted with the task of now finally confronting the moment when I have to say my piece, when I have to edit and put out these films there that would be my unique offering to the discourse around Kabir. So I was building up so much anxiety in myself. I think my artistic ego was daunted and in a tizzy. The kind of questions that were clogging my head were, what is my signature? What is my original contribution? Um, what is my style? What do I have to say? And I was blocked. And the burden grew to such a peak that I felt something break, something really, it was like, that's why they call it a breakdown, right? And I wanted to say that really, if I look back in my creative journey, that was possibly the most important time in my life when something broke. What broke? I think it was my ego that got shattered. You know, I really truly confronted the realization that I'm no great shakes. I'm not one. Uh, uh, I'm not going to make masterpieces. That was very clear to me. And I was so wretched at one level and curiously becoming lighter by the minute. When I say lighter, I want to signal to you that when you have a breakdown of that kind where your creative ego is crushed, you become free. Something subtly shifted for me in that process. I stopped thinking that I'm going to make masterpieces. Instead, I wanted to make an offering. And it is this word offering that kind of rescued me in that moment. Um, Suddenly, it was not about what I want to say, but what is this footage trying to say? It was not about me saying my piece as much as me listening to what this footage wanted to say. And what began to reveal itself to me very clearly in that moment was that I was not making these films. I had not made any of this footage. I had, in fact, received it. I had received it from a space beyond the reach of my small self. In fact, these experiences were gifts to me. And all I had to do was pass the gift on to others. And that's when something began to shift and things began to flow. And things began to fall into place in the editing process. I stopped trying to exert my will on the footage. I capitulated my artistic will and I became alert and present to what was wanting to emerge through me. I started crafting the footage, I like to say, inwards out rather than outwards in, you know. The footage itself had a truth that I had to first listen to and allow that to go through, just pass through me. So this is what that whole period signaled to me. And I've touched upon many ideas here, but later, and even in that moment, of course, Kabir is never far from speaking to me and offering his two-piece to everything that I undergo. So I hope you can see my slideshow now. So I'm going to share with you a doha where Kabir says, मेरा मुझ में कुछ नहीं, जो कुछ है सो तेरा, तेरा तुझको सौंप दूं, क्या लागे है मेरा. There's nothing in me that's mine. All that is yours. I offer to you what's already yours. What can I say is mine? Or what can I say I've lost? So this experience really kind of resonated for me in a book which is called The Gift, and it was a book that was gifted to me by Lewis Hyde, The Gift, Creativity and the Artist in the Modern World. So that's my chosen book, along with another book today called The Unknown Craftsman by Soetsu Yanagi, a Japanese author who reflects on the role of the craft in the context of Japanese and Korean pottery. And the project that I will reference in the course of my talk are the songs of a wonderful contemporary, very popular and renowned writer, Dhruv Bhatt, who I think is here with us today in this Zoom call, quietly listening. I'm very inspired by Dhruv Dada's poetry in Gujarati, and I'm going to share with you a couple of his songs that I feel speak about the creative process. This is what Lewis Hyde says: a gift is not something we get by our own efforts. It cannot be bought. It cannot be obtained by an act of will. It is bestowed upon us. That's why talent is rightfully called a gift, because no amount of will or effort can cause its initial appearance. For an artist, often intuition or inspiration is received as a gift. As the artist works, some portion of the creation is bestowed upon her. An idea pops into the head, a tune begins to play. The artist is exhilarated by her work when this gratuitous element appears. With it comes the uncanny sense that I, the artist, did not make the work. So D.H. Lawrence has famously said, not I, but the wind that blows through me. So this book opened up. In this book, I recognized my process, and it gave it a lot of strength and clarity. In this book, I'm told that in ancient Greece and Rome, nobody would be foolish enough to say, you know, that man is a genius. Nobody could be a genius. You could have a genius. Genius was always understood as a divine attendant spirit that is outside of you, never inside you, never you yourself. People were not geniuses. They could solicit a genius in their creative work. So an essential part of an artist's work is not creation as much as invocation, because part of the work cannot be made, it has to be received. We cannot have this gift except perhaps by supplication, by courting, by creating within ourselves that begging bowl to which the gift is drawn. I want to now take you through 2-3 ideas about how one courts the gift, how one courts or supplicates the ability to receive a gift. And different artists have spoken about this differently, and I resonate with all of them. And as we go along, you will hear the voice of Lewis Hyde, Soetsu Yanagi, Dhruv Dada, and of course, Kabir is never absent from any conversation. So the first thing a lot of people speak about in this creative process is the idea of listening. Socrates famously was supposed to have an oracle, a daemon, as he called it, who used to speak to him, and he listened to the wisdom that he heard. Milan Kundera says every true novelist listens for that suprapersonal wisdom, which explains why great novels are always a little more intelligent than their authors. Novelists who are more intelligent than their books should go into another line of work. Kabir says, माटी कहे कुम्हार से तू क्या रोंदे मोहे, एक दिन ऐसा आएगा मैं रोंदूंगी तोहे. Of course, this doha translates as clay says to the potter, you may need me. True. One day will surely come when I'll be needing you. Of course, at a core level, this doha is an encounter with depth, with impermanence, with perishability of things, but it's also a pointer to the idea of an artist and her material. Kabir is signaling that he is able to listen to something other than the voices in his own head. He is able to listen as a potter, as a kumhar, to the material, what the clay is wanting to say. Kumar Gandhar famously used to say, he was a legendary classical vocalist, and he used to say, "Main sun raha hu, jo aapko suna raha hu," which translates as, I'm listening to that which I am singing to you. So before you speak, before you stake your claim, before you show your stuff, you have to be quiet and you have to listen. Kabir says, Koi sunta hai Guru Gyani, gagan mein awaaz hove jheeni jheeni. Kabir is always pushing us to listen to that subtle sound in the sky. Of course, the sky is there, the sky is here, but the stress is on a kind of an inward quietening, because unless there is a quietening, you won't be able to listen. The second idea I want to share with you is the idea of birthing. As these are all terms I'm relating with the creative process. And why do I say birthing? So Yanagi says, art is difficult as long as we follow the path of jiriki, which is salvation through one's own efforts, rather than tariki, abandonment of efforts at self-reliance, rather reliance on grace. The difference is between things born and things made. So here I want to introduce you to a song by Dhruv Dada, because this is exactly what Dhruv Dada speaks about regarding his own creative process as a poet. As a poet who's created many poem songs which have been taken up by many who have sung them. So Dhruv Dada asks, Tame gaya akash bhari preete, te geet kaho mhara kehvaye kai rite. You sang with a love that filled the sky. Then tell me, how can I say, no, this song is mine? He's the poet, right? He's the creator. So how can I say this belongs to me? गीत ने तो अवतरवू इच्छा थी होय छे के चाल जाई कंठ कंठ मालिए. Here, Dhruv Dada is actually giving full agency to the song. Like Kabir was listening to the clay, he is listening to the song as an entity outside of himself. This song has agency. What is he saying? Geet ne to avatarvu ichha thi hoy. The song will manifest and arrive, literally take an avatar at its own whim. Uski ichha se, not at my calling. Ke chal jai kant kant maliye. When the song is ready, it will come thinking, oh, I think the time has come to go and hang out in many singers' throats. Mahaliye matlab have a good time. Have a good time in many people's throats. Apne to evada ke mharu che chal kai gajwa ghaliye. So then, wouldn't it be a little stupid for me to say, no, you belong to me, and stuff you into my pocket? Je prem kari pame te jeete, te geet kaho mhara kehvaye kai rite. The one who has the ability to shower love upon this song wins this song. How can I say this song belongs to me? Amne, and now we come to, in all of Dhruv Dada's songs, I find that the second antara is loaded. The first antara is warm up. Then the second antara is when he really unfurls the kernel of the philosophy of the song. And here he is using the image of birthing. Amne anadeet hoy, सांपड़ियों के सांपड़ी हो पीड़ा एवी के सहवाए nahi. It is true that in giving birth to this song, I have suffered a pain that is unbearable. No act of creation is without pain. It is true that I have suffered a lot of pain. એટલું તો હોય અને 1,00,000 હોવાના મથુરાને ગોકુલ કહેવાય નહીં. That may be true, but still it doesn't make Mathura into Gokul. For those of you not familiar with the mythology around Krishna, you must remember that Krishna was birthed by Devaki in Mathura, but then adopted by Yashodhara in Gokul, which is where he grew up. So Dhruv Dada is saying, it's true, I gave birth to this, but it doesn't make Mathura into Gokul. Ame apya je devki ni rite, te geet kaho mhara kehvaye kai rite. So if I gift you this Krishna song, like Devki did, how can I say this song is mine? So this has immense implications for any creative process, for all of us creative artists in a modern world, trying to negotiate our expressions with both the market and the commons. So I'm going to just quickly sing this song for you. आकाश भरी प्रीते ते गीत कहो म्हारा कहवाए कई रीते. This tune is also Dhruv Dada's, or not his. हो तमे गाया आकाश भरी प्रीते ते गीत कहो म्हारा कहवाए कई रीते. ને તો અવતરવો ઈચ્છાથી હોય છે કે ચાલ જઈ કંઠ કંઠ માલીએ. આપણે તો એવડા કે કેવડા કે મારું છે ચાલ કહી ગજવામાં ઘાલીએ. જે પ્રેમ કરી પામે તે જીતે તે ગીત કહો મારા કહેવાય કઈ રીતે. તમે ગાયા આકાશ ભરી પ્રીતે તે ગીત કહો મારા કહેવાય કઈ રીતે. અમને અનડીઠ હોય સાંપડ્યું કે સાંપડી હો પીડા એવી કે સહેવાય નહીં. એટલું તો હોય અને એટલાક હોવાના મથુરા ને ગોકુલ કહેવાય નહીં. અમે આપ્યા જે દેવકી ની રીતે તે ગીત કહો મારા કહેવાય કઈ રીતે. તમે ગાયા આકાશ ભરી પ્રીતે તે ગીત કહો મારા કહેવાય કઈ રીતે. So I guess that's why you never say I made a baby, or maybe you do sometimes, but more often you will say I gave birth to a baby, because there is a difference between making and allowing something to be born. So the role of the artist becomes almost one of a trustee, like Devaki, not a mother that clings with a sense of mine, but one who lets go with the awareness of having been a channel. And he so beautifully in this speaks about the pain of giving birth. So this brings us to the third idea, because in this act of creation, as you can see, nature is being invoked. You are stepping back to allow nature to do its work. So this brings us to The third idea around creativity, which I'm borrowing a term now from um, Chinese philosophy of Taoism, which is called doing, not doing. It's translated as we, woo, we, a doing, not doing. And I'm going to juxtapose that with the idea that I received from Kabir, which is Sahaje Sahaje. You know, Sahaj, people who know the common parlance of Hindi, how the word Sahaj gets used, Sahaje is spontaneously, naturally, on its own, easily. Okay? So, according to this philosophy of Taoism, what they present before us is a model of non-striving, in which non-action is described as the purest and most effective form of action. Kabir says something quite beautifully resonant. He says, "Jitni leher samund mein, utni man ki dod. Sahaje moti nipje jab man aave hai thor." Restless like the ocean waves, this mind is always on the run. When it grows still and comes to a halt, spontaneously, a pearl is born. So you can see all the ideas resonant with the idea of giving up feverish, willful, egoic control in a process, capitulating that. And when you do that, something takes shape, something emerges. So now I'm going to show you a clip from a film called Chalo Hamara Desh. It's a 2-minute clip. I'm on a train journey to Banaras with Prahlad Tipania ji from Madhya Pradesh, a folk singer, a knower of Kabir in quite deep ways. We are traveling in this train, and he says a few very intriguing things about सहजता क्या होती है, सहजता की क्या स्थिति है. So I will just.
ए जी घाटे पानी सब भरे न योगट भरे न कोई, और योगट घाट कबीर का और भरे सो निर्मल.
एक आप साकी कहते हैं ना, अवघट घाट कबीर का.
हाँ, ये घाट बनाया है, जैसे कि ये हिंदुओं का घाट है या मुसलमानों का या नीची जाति का या ऊंची जाति का, ये घाट बने हैं. अच्छा. और वहाँ पर पानी भरने का काम करते हैं या माने ज्ञान लेने का काम करते हैं या कुछ वस्तु हासिल करने का काम करते हैं, वो घाट है. भाई जहाँ पर जैसे नदी के ऊपर घाट बना तो वो स्नान करने का, और कुछ ऐसे घाट है जहाँ जैसे अभी इनकी दुकान है तो वो इनकी दुकान का घाट, मतलब वो स्थान जहाँ पर से हमें वो चीज
ऐसे घाट होते नहीं, हम लोग के घाट होते हैं, सिंधिया घाट है, मणिकंका घाट है, राजघाट है, बात वही बता रहे हैं सबके. वो तो नहाने का हो गया, हाँ घाट हो गया.
वस्तु को लेने का भी तो घाट है. घाट का मतलब होता है एक विशेष स्थान
जहाँ वो मिलते हैं. कपड़े धोते हैं, धोबी है, उनके अलग घाट है. और जैसे कि ये दूसरी कह रहे हैं, ऐसे उनके अलग अलग ऐसे घाट बने हुए हैं.
तो वो जो घाट है तो उन घाटे पानी सब भरे, उन घाट के ऊपर सब भरते हैं, पर अवघट भरे न कोई. ऐसा जहाँ पर इस तरह का कोई घाट नहीं है, ऐसी जगहों पर पानी भरने वाले बहुत कम हैं. यानी घाट के ऊपर भर करके तो आप सीमा में बन जाएंगे. बनारसी साड़ी का घाट इनका है तो इसलिए आप वहाँ से बनारसी साड़ी लेंगे, वहाँ से आप किसी दूसरी तरह की साड़ी आपको नहीं मिलेगी, या वहाँ क्योंकि वहाँ पर उसकी प्राथमिकता है, तो इस वजह से आप उस सीमा में बंध गए.
जिससे आपकी साउथ की साड़ी है, हम बनारस में आप आकर हम साउथ की दिखाएंगे तो आप नहीं लेंगे, तो बनारसी साड़ी ही लेंगे. इसी तरह
इस तरह से जब तक इंसान उन घाटों पर बंधा रहेगा, क्योंकि हद केवल जाति धर्म संप्रदाय की मजहब मत की ही नहीं होती, ज्ञान की, गाने बजाने की और विषय वासना की, स्त्री पुरुष की, ये भी हद है। मैं कहता हूँ कि मैं बहुत अच्छा गाता हूँ तो मैं गाने की हद में बंधा। बहुत सारा कहता है कि मैं बहुत सारा जानकार हूँ या मैं बहुत विद्वान हूँ, तो वो उसकी हद में बंधा। जबकि सहजता की स्थिति के लिए जितनी भी हद हैं ये सब समाप्त होना चाहिए। इनसे छूटने का उपाय आदमी स्वयं करेगा तो होगा। जैसे कैमरों को आपने पकड़ रखा है, कैमरे ने आपको नहीं पकड़ा। तो इस तरह से कैमरे ने कहा कि आप मुझे पकड़ो, आपने पकड़ रखा है, तो आप उससे बंधे हुए हैं। तो इस तरह की जिस किस्म की भी आसक्तियां हैं वो हमने बांध रखी है।
एज हृदय माही यार सी और मुख देखा नहीं जा, मुख तो तब ही देखिए जब दिल की दुविधा जाए।
So, as you can see, this is a second clip from the films where my camera becomes the point of focus, which is why I've plucked it out here, because the subject of this talk is to go a little deeper into this, the process itself, the creative process. What was Prahlad ji signaling to me? It's quite elusive, isn't it? I still find myself struggling a little bit to catch it. What he's saying is that our self-definitions shackle us. The boundaries, the ghat that we put ourselves into is a choice we make. And for sahajta, to be in a state of sahajta, you need to free yourself. You need to let go of these self-definitions which actually limit you. In retrospect, I realized that it is only when I let go of the camera that I found the courage to sing. And that ability that came to me like a gift, it was not something I sought. It came to me like a gift. So, and the second interesting thing being said here is about going beyond this dil ki duvidha. When you are trying to see who you are in the mirror of your heart, you have to let go of duality. Duality is the core by which we get limited and trapped into a notion of me versus you, this and not this. And for a state of sahajta, for a state of creative flow, you have to be free of that. Because that self-consciousness is what, really speaking, can kill the process of touching something like a parvana. So, Soetsu Yanagi says, if I turn to the things that display real beauty, they can be described as neither perfect nor imperfect. They come out of a world that existed before this dualism began, or rather not before or after, but in a world where this dualism is irrelevant. Their slight irregularities, he's talking about those folk crafted pots, come by chance and not by self-conscious deliberation. The precise and the perfect carries no overtones, admits of no freedom. The perfect is static and regulated, cold and hard. Beauty must have some room, must be associated with freedom. Freedom indeed is beauty. The love of the irregular is the sign of the basic quest for freedom. So now I'll come to the last key idea around creativity, which comes up a lot in Kabir, in these mystic traditions, and in the voice of Dhruv Dada in this next song, which is the idea of emptying. In fact, I find I sometimes like to think of creativity as good plumbing. Things have to be in a flow. If there's too much baggage in you of old ideas and identities, you're not empty. You're not creating space for something new to come in and for a flow to happen. So I see it as good plumbing, And I find it mirrored in the creativity of Dhruv Dada's songs, where I find him repeatedly returning to the water cycle as a metaphor for creativity. In this next song that I'm going to share with you, he speaks to us. He asks of us a question: what would happen if we became a cloud? ચાલને વાદળ થઈએ અને જોઈએ કે ક્યાંક થાય છે ધોધમ ધોધ જેવું કાંઈક આપણા વિશે. He's saying, come on, let's turn into a cloud and see. Will something thunder and shower out of me? આપણામાં કોઈ હળ જોડે ને કોઈ બે જણા જાય ભીંજાતા ખેતર ભણી જાય ભીંજાતા વાવણી મિશે. When I arrive in the shape of a cloud, will two people take to the fields with a plow in hand on the pretext of planting seeds, getting soaked. આપણે તો આકાશ ભરીને આવું અને છલકી જાઉં એવડું વને વન. નાગડા નાતા છોકરાને જોઈ થાય તો આખા ગામને એની જેમ નાહવાનું મન. He says, we will just arrive and fill the sky like these clouds and shower out of myself over forests and fields, and those village children, those naked village children who will come out prancing in glee when it begins to rain. The whole village will be eyeing them enviously, because that's what they all want to be doing, all adults, but don't have the courage, the gaiety, the abandon to do so. હોય એવું તો થાય ગણીને આપણે તો બસ વર્ષી જાઉં ગામની માથે સિમની માથે ઉગમણી આથમની દિશે. So he says it may be so. All I have to do is arrive and shower on the village and in the fields from where it rises to where it sets. Now here comes the second antra, again carrying the kernel of the philosophy of the whole song. Sav dhoda ke sav kala, jem chahiye eva phul gulabi rangni relam jhel. He's speaking about the colors of clouds. If I were a cloud, I could choose to be utterly brilliantly white or dark murky black. I could choose any color I like a riot of colors bursting. આપણા મોજે આપણા ચિત્તર કાઢીએ એવું આખું મળે દેહની તૂટે જેલ. Imagine what a life that would be, where you could paint your own form, your own shape, at your own whim and liking. You could break free of the prison of this form, this body. He's signaled many, many ideas here that we have been discussing. The idea of not getting limited by your own self-definition, not getting trapped into a boundary, a form, but always being amorphous, ready, shape-shifting, and leaping out of the constraints of this body. આપણે તો બસ આપણામાંથી નીકળી જાવું ઝરમરીને કોઈ અજાણી ઝાંકળ ઘેલી પાંદડી વિશે. All I will do as a cloud is just slip out of myself. And this is where the theme of emptying comes, right? That's what clouds do. They empty themselves and shower down on us like gifts, right? They don't see who they are giving gifts to. It's a gift to the unknown leaf somewhere, thirsting. But this cloud doesn't even know her. So when you touch this moment of creativity and this moment of creative expression where you lose the self, you become a gift for the universe. ચાલને વાદળ થઈએ અને જોઈએ કે ક્યાંક થાય છે ધોધમ ધોધ જેવું કાંઈક આપણા વિશે આપણામાં કોઈ હડજડ ને કોઈ બેજાના જાય ભીંજાતા ખેતર ભણી જાય ભીંજાતા વાવણી મિશે ચાલને વાદળ થઈએ અને જોઈએ કે ક્યાંક થાય છે ધોધમ ધોધ જેવું કાંઈક આપણા વિશે ચાલને વાદળ થઈએ અને જોઈએ કે ક્યાંક થાય છે ધોધમ ધોધ જેવું કાંઈક આપણા વિશે આપણામાં કોઈ હાડ ચડે ને કોઈ બે જણા જાય ભીંજાતા ખેતર ભણી જાય ભીંજાતા વાવણી વિશે ચાલને વાદળ થઈએ અને જોઈએ કે ક્યાંક થાય છે ધોધમ ધોધ જેવું કાંઈક આપણા વિશે આપણે તો આકાશ ભરીને આવવું અને છલકી જવું એવડું બનાવન નાગડાના તા છોકરાને જોઈ થાય તો આખા ગમને એની જેમ નવાનું મન હોય એવું તો થાય ગણીને આપણે તો બસ વરસી જવું ગામની માથે સિમની માથે યોગમણી આઠમની વિશે ચાલને વાદળ થઈએ અને જોઈએ કે ક્યાંક થાય છે ધોધમ ધોધ જેવું કાંઈક આપણા વિશે આપણામાં કોઈ હડ જણે ને કોઈ બે જણા જાય ભીંજાતા ખેતર ભણી જાય ભીંજાતા વાવણી વિશે ચાલને વાદળ થઈએ અને જોઈએ કે ક્યાંક થાય છે ધોધમ ધોધ જેવું કાંઈક આપણા વિશે સાવ ધોળા કે સાવ કાળા ને જેમ ચાહીએ એવા ફૂલ ગુલાબી રંગની રલમ છે આપણામાં જાય આપણા ચિત્ર કાઢીએ એવું આંખું મળે દેહની તૂટે છે આપણે તો બસ આપણામાંથી નીકળી જવું ઝરમરીને કોઈ અજાણી ઝાંકણ ખેલી પાંદડી વિશે ચાલને વાદળ થઈએ અને જોઈએ કે ક્યાંક થાય છે ધોધમ ધોધ જેવું કાંઈક આપણા વિશે આપણામાં કોઈ હાડ ચડે ને કોઈ બે જણા જાય ભીંજાતા ખેતર ભણી જાય ભીંજાતા વાવણી વિશે ચાલને વાદળ થઈએ અને જોઈએ કે ક્યાંક થાય છે ધોધમ ધોધ જેવું કાંઈક આપણા વિશે So I find an interesting resonance between Dhruv Dada's use of the term Dehani Tute jail, breaking free of the prison of the self, the prison that Prahaladji spoke about, the boundaries that tie us down, breaking free of that prison. I find it interestingly resonated in Soetsu Yanagi saying that the Korean bowls have no overstressed individualism about them. In that respect, they are utterly different from objects made today by modern artists in search of self-expression. Contemporary free form is willful and unfree. In fact, it can be said that the pursuit of freedom has led to prison gates, the prison of the self. He is speaking about the free form that emerged in modernity, that wanted to break away from tradition, from craft, to find that original self-expression, which came as a fallout of the post-Renaissance rational humanism, which put the human being at the center of the universe. So I think Kabir, Dhruv Dada, Lewis Hyde, Soetsu Yanagi are all pointing in a different direction. Lewis Hyde speaks about two kinds of life, Zo life and Bios life. Zo life is that it's a kind of life that is real and genuine, a life active, vigorous, that comes directly from the divine. It's the vaster idea, right? Bios life is your small self, the life you lead as a small self. So once we realize that the thread of Zo life runs beyond this physical body, beyond the prison of the self, beyond the deh ki jail, as Dhruv Dada put it, beyond the individual self, it becomes harder to differentiate the various levels of our being. There is a larger self, a species essence, which is a general possession of the race. And all works of art, paintings, songs, styles, these symbolizations which express and carry the facts of Zo life constitute the speech by which that larger self articulates and renews its spirit. You are only a vehicle for that larger self to express itself. And I'm going to show you a moment from a film.
हमने जिनसे सीखा है या जिनसे हमने सुना है और वो अभी जिंदा हैं। अबे थमने तो श्रीनाथ की धुनी को खूब गाया और हमारा जोड़ीदार सब मर गया। अबे थमे रह गया खाली एकला। नहीं है नहीं पंचम महाराज ने भी सूरदास बाबा भी मर गया,
सब गया। ये भी बालक उम्र में था।
हाँ
और हूँ भी ऐसे थोड़ो
हाँ लगभग 25 साल हो गए हमें, है ना? 25 से भी ज़्यादा हो गया, 30 साल हो गया। हाँ तो फिर ज़्यादा देर नहीं करा, हम अपनों एकदम अच्छे लटके झटके के साथ में और जो ऐसा भजन जो मैंने भी नहीं सुनिया कभी, ऐसा एक दो चार सुने
कैसे सुने जो
तुम
जानो थे
हम है नहीं आपके साथ। वो इससे सीखो। इसको मैं ले गया था इनके पास से। हाँ सबसे पहले इनसे मैं ले गया अपने पास। हाँ। कार्डबोर्ड का रहा जब। हाँ। और कई साल तक मेरे पास रहा ये। थोड़ा आगे आ जाओ। बस अब पीछे तक आएगा।
नरा धन में हाथ में नहीं हुई।
नरा धन में कि नरा साल में?
हाँ नरा साल में। चंदा जाएगा वो सूरज जाएगा, चंदा जाएगा सूरज जाएगा, ये जाएगा पवन पानी मन तुम जाओगा हम जानी। अभी मारे मत आपने बुसाया।
लाओ हम गा देते हैं। हूँ गाऊँ तुमने मारे से गाया भी
खूब गाओ,
खूब गाया। हमें साहिब से मिलना हमें सतगुरु से मिलना, हमें साहिब से मिलना, यार सतगुरु से मिलना
हमें नशे
बोलो। अरे मैं तो नशे में खूब यार मेरे गुरु से मिलना है। अरे मैं नशे में हो रहा मालिक से मिलना है। इस पाप कपट को छोड़ हमें बदली लेना है। अरे यार बदली लेना है। इस लोक मोह को छोड़ हमें बदली लेना है। अरे यार बदली लेना है। इस भव सागर को जीत हमें, इस भव सागर को जीत हमें मैदत में जाना है। अरे मैं तो नशे में हूँ यार मेरे गुरु से मिलना है। हाँ मैं नशे में हो रहा मालिक से मिलना है। गुरु रमन तुमरी बलियानी सिर पर ठोकर हमको दीनी। हर सिर पर ठोकर ऐसी हाँ ये है नहीं जभी तो बोलो बोलो बोलो
अन्नी मारते
इस हद को छोड़ बेहद में जाना है। बोलो अरे यार बेहद में जाना है। अरे हद को छोड़ बेहद में जाना है। अरे यार बेहद में जाना है। अरे साहिब कबीर बख्शीश कर दो। साहिब कबीर बख्शीश कर दो। या गम बानी गाई हो
गम बानी गाई हो।
ये तो भांग वाला भजन है। हाँ गाओ तो हाँ ये भांग का भजन की छाप है। सतगुरु ने भांग पिलाई अखियों में लालन छाई। चलो फिर कहीं आज माल खाते जहाँ हम जाएंगे वहाँ कोई बात नहीं। बांका का बांका तो सब होएगा। ने बांको कौन हो मालूम? बांको कौन होवे? इना झाड़का को पर जब फल लगे नहीं तो नमी जावे। जिका कने फल नहीं रहे तो वो बांको कहीं होवे। सतगुरु ने भांग पिलाई
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद
अखियों में लालन छाई।
साहब ने भांग पिलाई। साहब ने भांग पिलाई। अखियों में लालन छाई हो। साहब ने भांग पिलाई।
So, one who has tasted, partaken of this Zoe life, this larger self, which is the species essence, which is the commonwealth of a community. One who has tasted that Zoe life is humbled under the weight of the gifts she has received. And like a fruit-laden tree, she offers them as gifts to others. So I wanted to share this video with you because it signals many things about the spirit of the oral traditions, the folk music traditions in which I have learned all these lessons as a creative practitioner, where um, I see this as a cultural creative commons of sorts where boundaries blur all the time. Even the song they sang was speaking about breaking out of boundaries. Um, there are no hard defined boundaries of creative egos of any kind, whether of composer. Nobody knows who composed these songs. They are the distillate of a species essence that you are partaking in, that you receive. uh, Nobody even knows who wrote these songs. You see, they go by the name of Kabir, but many anonymous poets have staked a claim to that name and expressed themselves through it, because it didn't really matter to put your name there. This is a creative commons that refreshes the spirit in ways way past the claims of IPR and your stamp as a creative ego. So all boundaries blur in this space of the commons in a way that is refreshing, that refreshes the soul. And now I would like to end by a small note, because uh, I do not also want to romanticize necessarily this. We do operate, don't we all, in a market as artists. So let's see what Lewis Hyde has to say about that. A market economy is an emanation of logos, reason and logic, the principle of differentiation in particular. A gift economy is an emanation of eros, the principle of attraction, union, involvement, which binds together, is a gift, not a commodity. Or rather, works of art exist simultaneously in two economies, a market economy and a gift economy. But a work of art can survive without the market. But where there is no gift, there is no art. Unlike the sale of a commodity, the giving of a gift tends to establish a relationship between the parties involved. So gift exchange is a kind of erotic commerce. A market exchange has equilibrium or stasis. You pay to balance the scale. But when you give a gift, there is momentum and the weight shifts from body to body. If logic is the money of the mind, then imagination is its gift. There will be times when an otherwise useful application of logos wounds the imagination, when the money of the mind destroys the gift of the mind, when the spirit of the market destroys the gift which cultures have in their works of art. So I have learned some difficult lessons about how to negotiate these two economies, what I call Bhav ki economy, where I trade in feelings, when I work with these songs, when I sing them, and the market economy. Never at any moment allowing the market economy to fully define my practice. And it is when just a parting note from Kabir. Had chhadi behad gaya, hua nirantar vas. Kamal ek phula phul bin, nirkhe hai nijdas. Leaving the small, I leap into that vast. I stay in the boundless now. A lotus blooms, no flower is seen. I sit back and say, wow. So that's where I bring my presentation to an end. I'm sorry, I think I have gone beyond my time, but I'm very happy to take questions and engage in a conversation.
Thank you, Shabnam, for this very interesting session. And I think
it will be lingering in my mind for a long time probably. And I have been following Abu Fayaz, and the Sufi songs also by Abida Parvin since a long time. And I was trying to find my ways into the kind of dialect, into the lyrics they eventually present. But at this point of time, and I read one of your article, like you mentioned that you come from an agnostic background. I mean, like, but at one point of time, it was difficult to understand like where you were leading to, and then you probably traveled to Chhattisgarh and then had quite an experience there to understand where is Kabir, or like how eventually your path is going to be. So my question here is, I mean, like, for a person very at a very naive stage of understanding Kabir and his ideas, his methods, finding Kabir is a kind of a diverging process or a kind of a converging process. As in, I should I try finding Kabir, the soul, in people, in animals, in all the worldly affairs, in kind of phenomena that are happening around me, or should I dive deep into me to find the Kabir? So that's something where I am a bit lost, and probably you can shed some light into this question.
That's a very beautiful question. Thank you, Preetam. Uh, you know, very often in trying to understand what Kabir is, where Kabir is pushing us, I find that the answer invariably lies in collapsing an unwitting duality we set up. And I think the duality you have just set up right now in your question is within and without, Bahar and Bhitar. And that is a duality Kabir will not admit of. He will ask you to go deep within to find the whole world. He will say, and so will Rumi, that we believe Rumi's one beautiful quote, which in fact Farid Ayaz shares with us on our archive, Ajab Sheher. He says in Farsi or Persian that people imagine that the human being is in the world. Little do they realize that the world is in the human being. Kabir says, पड़ी बूंद समूंद में जाने है सब कोई समूंद समाना बूंद में जाने बिरला कोई that the drop falls in the ocean that everyone sees, but that the ocean is held in the drop that the rare one sees. So what does this mean? I mean, it sounds very interesting, but I believe that is what the mystics are inviting us to do, to connect with your own self so deeply that you connect with the world. Prahlad ji loves to say, "Jo khud se jud gaya, wo sab se jud gaya." Unfortunately, what people try to do is connect or identify with collectives outside of themselves, like the religious community, the national community. I am an Indian, I am this, I am that. These are all externally defined collectivities to which we try and pin our insecure self. Kabir will say, no, first go within, find out who you are. When you penetrate that veil within, you will find the whole world within you. You know, you will smash all dualities of I'm this, not that. You will find all the diversity of this cosmos within the self. And that's why yourself will melt in a sense, because yourself is typically predicated on I am this, not that. I am an upper caste, not a lower caste. I am a Hindu, not a Muslim. I am this, not that. I'm a man, not a woman. You know, this all these dualities collapse if we have the courage, the rigor of that inner work to penetrate the veil of all these identities and go deep within. You will find it all. So Bahar and Bhitar happen together in one moment. It cannot ever be one at the expense of the other. That is how Kabir would, I think, answer this. conundrum.
Thank you so much.
I hope it wasn't too abstract, and I hope it came through with a palpable sense of something tangible.
It went inside me. I think I'll take time to absorb that probably, but then like it makes sense to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Nidhi. I'm from Bangalore. I'm studying in third year currently. I have three things. If time permits, I'll probably ask all the three. Firstly, when you said, an artist should let go his ownership of what he creates into becoming something else, like in the largest scheme of things, right? In earlier this semester, when we were similarly in architecture as students or practitioners, we talk about creative process in design. Earlier we were in this semester we were talking about how do we get ideas, how do we start getting ideas, or where do we get it from, what's the inspiration. And even if we have an inspiration, say we're referring somebody else's work or some great architect's work, how much do we take from it? Is it copying and things like that? Similar to what you said in throughout the session, there's an architect called Louis Kahn. He also says in architecture, when you create something which becomes so universal, it never belongs to you then. It belongs to the institution, that's architecture itself. I found that very similar to what was shared throughout the session. That's one. Two is you sort of broke down the process of creative process itself into four. One being listen, birthing, non-action, and emptying. The last one was very interesting. I resonated with it a lot, emptying. So when the first day as architecture students, we didn't know what exactly we would be going through the rest of our lives. The first thing our faculty told was forget everything you have learned so far, or like unlearn everything. So in our head, we would be like, how do we unlearn something that we have learned 17 years or 18 years of our life? But we didn't understand what were they saying. But yeah, like after say like second or third year, you sort of understand the idea of that emptying or unlearning to molding yourself to become something else in the grander scheme of things. That's two. Three is you said you have to let go of that ownership, right? There was a recent I don't know if I want to say controversy or scandal, where the music composer A.R. Rahman, he had an original piece that was sort of taken down from another music director, and the remix was not really a good remix, or like it was a letdown for the original. So when you do something that beautiful, it belongs to everyone. How is it when you take something that's so like beautiful and you sort of strip it down to something else which is not very beautiful or not very great like how the original was? And is it valid if the artist or the creator has a problem then, when he thinks that whatever you did with my work or the way you interpreted my work is not very I don't know. I don't know the right word. Is it? It's not sufficient, or it's such a letdown, or some. Yeah, I just wanted to ask that, because when you said it sort of belongs to everyone, how is that creative liberation taking place?
Yeah. No, this is a very good and difficult question to answer, and which is why I ended by putting that complexity, that there are two markets. There is the gift economy and there is the market economy that a work of art circulates in. And if you are interested in deeper answers to this question from the same author, Lewis Hyde, I would recommend his next book, which is, I think, the creativity of the commons or something like that, the title is, where he looks more deeply into this question, therefore, of livelihoods, of survival in the market. You know, we are, so there are two realities that must be held simultaneously. It is not either or. It is not that you cannot own anything and you have to keep gifting everything to the world and end your life in penury. It is about a, a alert negotiation at all times, that in negotiating the market worth of your art, which is also important for collectives, for rural communities, for communities who have created these art forms, which then these Bollywood film directors come along one day, casually lift it, make a blockbuster hit without so much as a thank you, please, with your permission, may I, without any of that, and they make pots of money on that. There are problems there. In fact, even I would say Dhruv Dada would disagree with that, even though he has written a song like Tame Gaya Akash Bhari Preete. He would say you are free to sing the song, but not free to make money, make pots of money. That's not the freedom one is giving, right? So, so it is a really important negotiation you have to do as creative practitioners, where in the professionalization of your art, you do not lose touch with that zoo life, with that species essence, with that larger self, that that is that you are a vessel for. If you lose that, if you lose your ability to court that, if you lose your humility towards that, if you lose the ability to give back to that in ample generous measure as much as you have received from it, and every creative practitioner finds their own ways of giving back. If you become only a narcissistic practitioner, believing that you are the wellspring of this idea and it originated with you, you will end up feeling very hollow, I would say. Hollow, not in the good sense of emptying yourself, hollow as in the sense of loss of meaning, loss of location. Why are you here? So I don't know if I've sufficiently answered your question. I find that whenever in my creative practice, I challenge market logic, either in the way I quote a fee or don't quote a fee, or choose to gift what I want to share. Whenever I successfully step out of the market, I find my soul is refreshed. If I quote something really good, impressive, and I get paid for it also, cool, good. But it doesn't match the experience of the replenishment my soul receives when I manage to transact in the commerce of bhav or in the gift economy. So it's a complex process. You have to find the right balance and find your avenues of not just taking home, you know, there is this aapka take home kya hai. This phrase is so telling in the times we live in, where careerism and professionalism is all about what your take home is. Nobody really is speaking about give back anymore. It's all about self-worth through take home, through taking rather than giving. So I'll quote Shafi Muhammad Fakir, a Sufi singer I met in Pakistan, from one of the films Had Anhad. In that, at one point he says, look here, profession और इश्क में फर्क होता है. प्रोफेशन ये पूछता है कि मुझे प्रॉफिट कितना होगा, इश्क ये भी नहीं पूछता कि मुझे घाटा क्या होगा. You know, that would translate as there's a big difference between profession and passion. Profession asks, what will I profit? Passion doesn't even ask the question, what will I lose? And as the poet Walt Whitman says, The gift is to the giver and comes back most to him. It cannot fail.
Thank you, ma'am. Lastly, beginning of the session, I was a bit skeptical about attending it because I thought it wasn't the right place for me. But yes, I think I would have regretted it if I would have missed it. Thank you. I really enjoyed the session.
Thank you, Nidhi. Thank you. Thank you for your initial observations as well. You know, you talked about emptying as a young student in an architecture college. Can you imagine what the implication of emptying oneself would be for some of us who are much older with a lot more baggage that has gone stuffed? We've had many more decades than you to stuff ourselves with all kinds of baggage that doesn't move, that weighs us down. What in Buddhism is called beginner's mind. We have lost that. Children have beginner's mind. You young students have the capacity to connect with that beginner's mind. It's much tougher for us to apprehend the thusness of life. We are too quick to categorize, to label, to claim, to disclaim through the intellect. We're not in touch with the thusness of things. So, thank you for your comments as well. There's a question from Ria Malvi.
There's a question.
When did you really find Kabir
Ria,
so
would you?
influential that you wanted to know more about his teachings? The moment where Kabir began to speak to me was in the year 2002, in the aftermath of religious riots, anti-Muslim riots in the state of Gujarat. And I was living in Ahmedabad then, and Kabir very searingly questions this kind of attitude that we take so easy recourse to, which is vilifying a demonized other and feeling kind of secure in groups, groupieism. Kabir would question that at the core. If you are getting all jolly about being in a group of any kind, question yourself right there. So that's when I turned to Kabir and and started seeking answers to the question of why there is so much violence and division in human society, and got many more answers than I ever imagined.
Hi, Shabnam. Thank you so much.
Hi,
It's, it's always a pleasure to hear you. And it's always extremely moving, especially to me. I think you touched that chord as a gift, and I must thank you for it.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Snehal.
Maybe I have the question myself, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shabnam, I read the gift few years back. So I just started teaching, or maybe as a young teacher, 2 years into teaching, and it completely resonated to me as a teacher. The one teaches because also of the students, but one teaches because one is taught, and and then that gift is somebody given to you, and you just go to college just to give the gift to somebody else, and that freed me up a little.
That's so beautiful. Wow. To teach because you have been taught. Yeah.
Say something about that.
I lost the last part of what you said. Could you just repeat the last two sentences, Kiran?
Sorry. Yeah. Did it also resonate with you? You also teach, so the gift
Very
book
much.
as it.
Very much. It totally relates to me. It's like, Lewis Hyde in his book, The Gift, speaks about studying Native American Indian cultures and gift giving traditions in indigenous communities. And he says that in many of these communities, if you receive a gift and you don't pass it on, it brings bad luck. A gift is meant to be circulated. It's not meant to be hoarded. You don't say, oh, it's mine, now it'll stay here. It has to be in constant circulation. So I really, really relate with what you are saying, Kiran, very much, that when you have received so much, it becomes a tremendous burden if you don't pass it on. It's like something weighing you down, that you have received, you've such fortune, such there gratitude for so much that one has received, that the only response would be that I must pass it on now, and pass it on humbly with a bowed head, because you were not the origin of it. I remember when these 4 Kabir films were released in 2009, I met somebody on a tour somewhere, and he said to me, "Oh, Shabnam, I hear your work is creating ripples." And I remember looking at him and saying, "Really? I thought I was a ripple myself." And I'm sure if Kabir were here, he would say he is a ripple himself. Where would you place it? Where would you place that stone entering water? You can't. You have to submit, surrender to that lineage of which you have been given the gift of being a part. And I think that has been the deep solace I have found an as a highly individual, socialized into a very individual attitude. Many of us urban educated, especially Western educated products of Indian society, are schooled, are socialized, are conditioned into a highly individualized idea of self and creativity. And I know that sigh of relief in becoming a part of a tradition that's much larger than you. It gives to your soul to submit to something where you can bow your head and say thank you. That's all.
Snehal, you want to add
Yes,
something?
yes. I just wanted to continue on the light of being a teacher and being in the act of giving. Sometimes I question this act of giving because I'm so unsure of what I'm giving. So many a times, there is a notion that that wants that seems to me as though it is as much taking as much as giving. And in that light, I wonder, how my teachers felt, because I remember Leo and I remember KB Jain and many of them who used to teach us used to, and even I today go to school to feel refreshed. So as much as I kind of give, I think I get replenished so much that it's this joy of just engaging with this younger generation who are searching. And that, I think, is something that is so wonderful, to be part of that search. And many times I really thank my students to allow me to be part of that search.
Yes, wonderful. So beautifully put, Snehal. I would just add to what you're saying by saying that, even for me, in various moments, I have had this self doubt like, who am I to sing? Who am I to give? Who am I to hold forth? I'm not a trained singer. Uh, who am I? And I realize in those moments that, this is just another form of ego fixation, because again, the focus is I. Rather, if you shifted the focus away from I to the students or to whom you are offering the gift of a song, it begins to flow immediately, because then you are not, like I said, offering your masterpiece. You are simply making an offering, and that rescues you in that moment. It's not about you, actually, at the end of the day. And I also say this to people who often come to me and sometimes say, I'm very moved by this work and these dying oral traditions and folk wisdom. I want to contribute to save this tradition. So I immediately stop them and say, first, realize that you will be saved by the tradition. Recognize that. So this is exactly what you're saying, Snehal, that you feel replenished in the act of giving. The gift is to you yourself. Always, it comes back to you. So when you come to this oral tradition, this folk form, with humility, not with the arrogance of someone who will be the savior, but rather with the humility that you are there to be saved by the tradition, then you can do something with it.
जी, मुझे शबनम जी का वह जो चीटी के पाँव में घेवर भाई बांधू भाई, वह मुझे उनके मुंह से सुनना है अभी।
कौन सा?
चीटी के पाँव में घेवर बांधू भाई, कबीर जी
चींटी
का।
के पाँव नेवर बाजे सो
हाँ।
भी साहिब सुनता है।
हाँ। मुझे बहुत प्यारा लगता है और वो आपकी आवाज में तो बहुत ही
जी, वो यू आर स्पीकिंग, आप वो उस भजन की बात कर रहे हैं ना, कर गुजरान गरीबी में साधु भाई, मगरूरी क्यों करता? Yes, live in simplicity, my friend. Why are you strutting about in arrogance? And then he says, मुल्ला होकर बांग पुकारे, क्या तेरा साहिब बहरा है रे भाई? As a mullah, you go up onto your masjid and you bellow out your prayers. Has your Lord gone deaf? Kabir asks. चींटी के पाँव नेवर बाजे सो भी साहिब सुनता है रे भाई. On the ankle of an ant, that little pile, that anklet, that too the Lord hears. So why are you strutting out around, showing off your stuff? शायद गाने का अभी स्कोप ना हो. मैंने उस पोएम को शेयर किया, इतना काफ़ी है. मेरा तंबूरा भी गलत पिच पे तना हुआ है क्योंकि ध्रुव दादा के सारे गीत बहुत ऊंचे हैं. सो आई वोंट बी एबल टू इमीडिएटली सिंग इट फॉर यू.
आपके खाली आवाज से भी बहुत अच्छा लगेगा, खाली एक लाइन गा दीजिए.
कर गुजरान गरीबी में साधु भाई, मगरूरी क्यों करता? हाँ, मुल्ला होकर बांग पुकारे, क्या तेरा साहिब बहरा है रे भाई? चींटी के पाँव में नेवर बाजे सो भी साहिब सुनता. हाँ, कर गुजरान गरीबी में साधु भाई, मगरूरी क्यों करता? हाँ.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This has been a very enriching session. We can maybe bring it close.
Yeah. Thank you, Shabnam. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your generous time. Yeah.
Thank you.
We hope you can come to drop by college when you're in Mysore.
I would love that. That would be a joy.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks all of you for attending the event.
Thank you.
Thanks.